The worst kind of manipulation isn't loud. It's silent. And I think most people don't even realize they're being used until it's entirely too late.
Yeah, that is so true. I mean, we have to realize that not everyone who is close to you actually cares about you. Some people stay in your life for, one reason entirely, and that's just what they can extract from you.
Right, right. Like they view relationships through this strictly utilitarian lens, even if they dress it up in the language of friendship or love.
Exactly. It's what some researchers actually call a vending machine friend.
Oh, wow. A vending machine friend. I totally get that visual. So they treat you less like a complex human being and more like a dispenser for their immediate
You
needs.
nailed it.
Yeah,
They put the coin in, and they expect the emotional support or the favor or the cash to just drop out instantly.
right into their hands.
Right. And the defining characteristic of this dynamic is the disappearing act. Like when your life is going normally, or especially when you are the one in a crisis and you need support,
They are just entirely unreachable.
literally nowhere to be found. Their schedules are suddenly packed. But the minute they need advice or a ride or, quite literally an ATM, their name is suddenly lighting up your phone.
Wait, okay, let me push back on this for a second. Because if I say ask a friend to help me move a couch, I am technically extracting a favor from them, right? I'm putting a coin in the vending machine. So aren't all relationships inherently a little transactional?
Well, sure.
I mean, if we're being honest, we all need favors. Isn't keeping a ledger of who did what for whom technically what healthy people do too? Like, how do I know my own internal ledger isn't just, I don't know, petty?
No, that's a really great point. And psychological studies on social exchange prove that we do, in fact, all subconsciously keep a ledger. It's just the invisible architecture of human interaction.
Okay, so it is normal.
It is.
Yeah.
We all weigh the time and energy we spend against the affection or help we receive.
Huh.
The insidious part isn't that a ledger exists. The problem is that the person using you operates on entirely different accounting principles than you do.
Different accounting principles, how so?
Well, in a healthy dynamic, there is this principle of equity. If you help a friend move a couch today, there's an implicit, unspoken trust that they will support you when your car breaks down next month. The scales balance out over a lifetime.
Ah, I see. So the manipulator's ledger is just permanently tipped in their favor.
Exactly. It's like a shadow ledger.
Yeah.
Exploitation happens because the cost is perpetually on your side of the balance sheet, and the reward is perpetually on theirs.
Wow.
And the craziest part, they have absolutely zero intention of ever returning the favor. They are perfectly comfortable living in a state of relational debt to you because, well, they don't view you as a creditor. They view you as a resource.
Just a resource. That is chilling. And you can actually see that extraction happening in real time, right? Like you pay attention to the cadence of a conversation with them.
Oh, absolutely.
Because every single interaction somehow shifts back to their problems, their needs, their life. Even if you start the conversation talking about a massive life event of your own, they will find this like microscopic pivot point to bring the spotlight back to themselves.
Yeah, that pivot is a measurable psychological phenomenon. It's often labeled conversational narcissism.
Conversational narcissism.
Yeah, and it isn't just someone being briefly distracted by their phone. It's an active process of conversational hijacking. They utilize what sociologists call a shift response rather than a support response.
Okay, wait, what's the difference there?
So if you say you're feeling incredibly tired, a support response would be, oh no, why? Did you not sleep well? But a shift response is, tell me about it. I've been working 80-hour weeks and I'm exhausted.
Oh, man. Yes, you can literally watch their eyes glaze over when the topic isn't them. And that active glazing over is what really gets me.
Right, because it's not passive distraction.
Exactly. It's an active devaluation of your words. You listen deeply to them, but they are just waiting for your mouth to stop moving so they can resume their own monologue.
Because, frankly, your internal world is completely irrelevant to them. Unless, of course, your internal world can be leveraged to serve their immediate needs.
Yeah, and if it's just about a lopsided favor economy, you'd think we would eventually just stop helping them, right? Like, we'd recognize the bad investment, cut our losses, and walk away.
You would think so, yeah.
But we don't. We stay locked in these dynamics for years. So what happens when the vending machine runs out or when you finally try to walk away from it?
Well, that's when the dynamic shifts rapidly from extraction to guilt.
Guilt.
Yeah. Once you pull back, they realize their access to the resource is threatened. So instead of asking you for things directly, which would, allow you to say a simple no, They maneuver you into a position where you feel like you're committing a moral failing by refusing them.
They weaponize obligation.
Exactly. They weaponize obligation.
There are actually these lists of manipulative phrases experts point out that are chilling specifically because of how casual they sound. Like, "you're too sensitive" is a massive one.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
When they tell you that you're too sensitive, they're accomplishing two things simultaneously. First, they are entirely dodging accountability for whatever boundary they just crossed or insult they just delivered.
Right.
And second, and honestly far more destructively, they are eroding your self-trust. They're training you to view your own emotional reaction as the problem, rather than their behavior. It is the textbook mechanism of gaslighting.
Another phrase that completely traps people is, "I guess I'm always the bad guy."
Ugh, yes. That is a tactical script flip.
The script flip.
Yeah, you confront them about something they did to hurt you, and suddenly they collapse into exaggerated self-pity. The mechanism here is just brilliant in its cruelty.
Because it forces you to abandon your own grievance.
Exactly. You immediately switch into a caretaking role. You end up comforting the person who just used you because they've successfully manufactured a scenario where they are the victim of your quote-unquote unreasonable expectations.
And they also love to audit the past, don't they? With phrases like, "after everything I've done for you." Even if the things they've done for you are just microscopic compared to what you've given them.
Right. They are inflating the value of their past, minimal contributions, to force your compliance in the present.
And this manipulation goes even deeper when you look at the raw experiences people share online. Like, in communities dedicated to emotional intelligence, there are countless stories of manipulators literally weaponizing their target's lowest moments.
Oh, definitely.
They'll use a period of time when you were deeply struggling, maybe a depressive episode, a job loss, a messy breakup, as permanent proof of your perpetual ineptitude. Like, you are inherently broken and you need to keep them around because you simply cannot survive without their guidance.
Because keeping you in a state of perceived incompetence guarantees their position of power.
Wow.
Yeah. And conversely, these individuals, these energy vampires, will actually treat you significantly worse when you're happy, independent, and succeeding.
Because your success threatens their control. If you don't need them, they can't extract from you.
Precisely why they play the martyr. They will issue these subtle ultimatums to coerce you into shrinking yourself down. They systematically dismantle your confidence so that you remain dependent on their flawed version of reality.
It's like a magician's misdirection, but deeply malicious. They make you look so hard at your own supposed flaws, your own fabricated selfishness, that you don't even notice their hands are deep in your pockets taking whatever they want.
That's a great analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And the illusion shatters the moment you attempt to zip those pockets shut.
Right.
The moment you establish a hard boundary and tell them no, their entire persona fractures. The charm vanishes, the warmth disappears, and they often become cold or outright hostile.
Because your boundary is blocking their access. But establishing that boundary is agonizing. Like, we feel an immense, crushing guilt the second we say no to these people. Why do we feel like we are committing a crime just by protecting our own time and energy?
Psychologists explore this through the concept of unhealthy responsibility. In a manipulative dynamic, you have been systematically conditioned to take ownership of their emotional reactions.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you aren't just making a choice for yourself. You've been tricked into believing you are responsible for managing how they feel about your choice.
There is an analogy I've heard that sounds absolutely unhinged, but I think it captures the absurdity of this perfectly.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so imagine your neighbor walks over and says, "Every time you close your living room blinds, it makes me so furious that I'm going to throw a heavy rock right through your window."
Okay.
So later that night, you want some privacy, you close your blinds, the neighbor throws the rock, and the glass shatters everywhere. Is it your fault the window break?
Well, logically, no. The person throwing the rock is entirely responsible for the destruction.
Exactly.
But in a toxic dynamic, the manipulator has convinced you that the broken glass is your fault for closing the blinds. They have trained you to believe that if you had simply abandoned your own need for privacy, the peace would have been kept.
So you start leaving the blinds open permanently, you abandon your own boundaries to manage their unreasonable volatility.
That's exactly it. And to make sure you never even think about closing those blinds again, they deploy a tactic called breadcrumbing. They don't just punish you, they confuse you.
Right, breadcrumbing.
It is the practice of giving you just enough attention, just enough warmth, or just enough of a promise to keep you on the hook.
It's that one incredibly sweet, nostalgic text message they send right at the exact moment you were finally ready to block their number. Or what some people online call future faking. They promise you the absolute world, the white picket fence, the massive promotion, the lifelong ride or die loyalty. They paint this beautiful picture of what your relationship could be with absolutely zero intention of ever actually delivering on it.
And the neurochemistry behind breadcrumbing is just devastating to the human brain.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Intermittent reinforcement, which is getting a reward at random, unpredictable intervals. It mimics the exact psychological loop of a casino slot machine.
Oh, wow. So it's an addiction.
Literally, it hijacks your brain's dopaminergic reward centers. You endure days or weeks of neglect, pulling the lever over and over again, getting nothing. But then randomly, you hit the jackpot. They give you a compliment. They actually show up for you.
And that random hit of dopamine is so intense it overwrites the weeks of misery.
Exactly. It creates a trauma bond. Over time, your brain actually gets rewired to crave that specific high-stress cycle. Consistent, healthy affection starts to feel boring to your nervous system because it isn't accompanied by the extreme chemical spikes of intermittent reinforcement.
So why do they do it? I mean, why not just be consistently terrible so we can finally leave, or consistently good so we can have a real relationship?
Well, studies indicate that this behavior is frequently perpetrated by individuals exhibiting traits of vulnerable narcissism.
Vulnerable narcissism.
Yeah. Unlike grandiose narcissists who loudly demand the spotlight, vulnerable narcissists have a deeply fragile sense of self. They desperately need external validation to regulate their self-esteem, but they are simultaneously terrified of true intimacy and rejection.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they keep you on a string.
Right. They pull you close enough to extract the validation they need to survive, but push you away before they have to actually commit or be vulnerable themselves.
And they specifically target people who will tolerate the string pulling, don't they?
They do. They prey on individuals with anxious attachment styles. If you have an anxious attachment, your core wound is a fear of abandonment, and you naturally seek constant reassurance.
So the breadcrumber just exploits that fundamental human hunger for connection.
Precisely. They offer a mirage of intimacy to keep you heavily invested, knowing your anxiety will prevent you from walking away from the breadcrumbs.
This constant cycle, hoping for the jackpot, absorbing their guilt trips, analyzing their cryptic text messages, it doesn't just mess with your psychology, it takes a literal, measurable toll on your physiology.
Completely.
Which brings us to a massive, undeniable sign. You feel completely physically drained after being in their presence.
Yes. You don't feel connected or uplifted after getting coffee with them. You feel depleted. And research is very clear that this phenomenon isn't just moodiness or introversion. It is scientifically recognized as emotional exhaustion.
Because your body is functioning as an alarm system.
Exactly. Because you are constantly regulating their emotions, suppressing your own needs, and walking on eggshells, your central nervous system is operating in a state of hyperarousal. They are actively draining metabolic energy from your system.
There's fascinating data out there regarding how our intuition physically processes this drain. Like, we are taught to dismiss our gut feelings as irrational or unscientific, but the gut actually contains around 500 million neurons.
Yeah, it's functioning as a literal second brain.
Right.
It's the enteric nervous system, communicating directly with your brain via the vagus nerve. So while your conscious, rational mind is trying to make excuses for your friend's bad behavior, your gut is rapidly processing millions of microsignals,
Like a slight eye roll.
or a tiny shift in vocal tone, a fleeting micro-expression of contempt.
It computes the data faster than the frontal lobe can rationalize it.
And the output of that computation is physiological. You feel nausea. You feel a sudden tension in your neck. Your heart rate elevates when their name pops up on your lock screen. These physical reactions defy logical excuses.
I want to stop on that nausea point for a second because that blurs a really tricky line for me.
How so?
Well, social anxiety makes my heart race too. If I'm prone to overthinking, how am I supposed to know if my gut is genuinely warning me about a manipulator, or if my own anxiety is just acting up and I need to take a deep breath?
That's a great question. The distinction really lies in the source of the friction. With generalized social anxiety, the fear is primarily internal. You're worrying about how you are being perceived, or you're afraid of embarrassing yourself.
Okay.
But with the user, an energy vampire, the physical drain is a specific reaction to external cognitive dissonance. Your gut is reacting to the fact that their words and their actions repeatedly contradict each other.
Ah, like they say they have your back, but their behavior isolates you.
Exactly. Your body recognizes the threat of that inconsistency. That specific friction, the gap between the illusion they project and the reality you are experiencing, is what causes the exhaustion. Your brain is burning massive amounts of energy trying to reconcile two totally incompatible realities.
That makes so much sense. And we have to recognize that this exhaustion isn't limited to bad dates or toxic childhood friends. We need to broaden the scope entirely. This parasitic dynamic absolutely thrives in the corporate world.
Well, the workplace is an ideal environment for users. Professional etiquette often masks manipulation entirely. Workplace experts point out that the mechanisms here parallel personal relationships almost perfectly.
You definitely see it in the colleague who constantly asks for your help on their deliverables without ever checking your bandwidth first. They just operate under the assumption that your time is public property.
Yeah. Or the coworker who fully expects you to step in and finish their presentation, but the minute you message them asking for a simple clarification on a project, they completely ghost you.
Or the most classic corporate maneuver.
Yeah.
You put in 80% of the analytical work on a group project, and they gladly step up to the podium to take all the visible credit during the leadership review.
It also heavily occurs from the top down. A glaring red flag is a manager who continuously assigns you tasks that fall completely outside your job description, increasing your workload and liability without any corresponding increase in title, compensation, or resource allocation.
Or they disrespect the most basic boundary of all, your time off. You are explicitly on vacation, and they are demanding remote work from you, labeling everything an urgent crisis.
It's the exact same boundary violation as the neighbor throwing the rock through the window, just wrapped in corporate jargon. They make you feel guilty for taking the PTO you earned.
So how do you combat this at work?
Combating this in a professional environment requires a very mechanical implementation of boundaries. You cannot rely on them suddenly developing empathy. You have to openly communicate your operational worth and establish strict focus hours.
Like physically blocking out sections of your calendar so they cannot schedule over your deep work. It's essentially corporate stock buybacks, but they are doing it with your time. They're inflating their own quarterly metrics and performance reviews by liquidating your sanity. And there's no long-term growth plan for you in that transaction.
Which is why you have to use confrontation as a tool. Not confrontation in the sense of aggression, but as a healthy, necessary conflict resolution technique. You have to directly, professionally address the pattern of them asking for favors without returning them. You must force the shadow ledger into the light.
Because whether it's a colleague sitting in the cubicle next to you, a romantic partner you live with, or someone you have called your best friend for a decade, the ultimate realization is the exact same.
The underlying mechanisms of extraction just do not change based on the label of the relationship.
The truth is, people who use you don't always look like enemies. They don't have ominous background music playing when they walk into a room. Sometimes they look exactly like your closest confidant.
They look like friends.
They look like a charismatic coworker. But once you recognize the silent signs, the sheer physical exhaustion, the deeply asymmetrical ledger, the constant guilt trips disguised as requests, you stop giving them access so easily. You realize the vending machine is empty, and you unplug it.
Right. And I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder on your own, drawing from the deeper depths of that social exchange theory we talked about.
Okay, what is it?
Well, we discussed the basic ledger of costs and rewards, but there is an advanced concept called cumulative rewards and costs. Think about the relational savings account you've built with this person over months or years. Are you staying in this dynamic simply because you invested so much time and emotion into them in the past, even though they are actively bankrupting you in the present?
The sunk cost fallacy.
Exactly. Sunk cost fallacy keeps millions of people tied to emotional vampires. It might be time to sit down, look closely at the math of your relationship, and finally audit your ledger.